Noel Gallagher has never been shy about his love of music, especially his own. He's the man who once declared himself the greatest songwriter since Lennon. A provocateur who's spent decades casually tossing out jabs at every musician who's dared to look in his direction, including his own brother. But beneath the bravado, Noel is a walking encyclopedia of rock and roll history, a man who's been both a fan and a disciple, learning at the feet of the legends he now claims kinship with. He's carved out his own legacy with Oasis and his solo ventures, but he'll be the first to admit that everything he knows, he learned from his heroes. His influences aren't just abstract ideas or vague inspirations. They're vivid, almost sacred lodestones that he returns to, muses who haunt his music at every turn. Of course, it all begins with the Beatles. Every British rocker has their Beatles phase, but for Noel, it's more like a lifelong love affair. He worships them openly, unapologetically, with the kind of dedication that borders on zealotry. He didn't just learn their songs, he studied them like ancient texts. Listen to Definitely Maybe, and you'll hear Gallagher channeling Lennon and McCartney's melodic structures, their knack for unforgettable hooks, and the sheer audacity of creating songs that feel like they're etched in the stone of collective memory. But he didn't just stop at admiring them. Noel didn't see anything wrong with a bit of strategic borrowing, and Oasis's early albums bear the marks of his Beatles fixation in more than just tone and style. Take Supersonic, for instance, with its unmistakable echo of George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. Noel lifts the riff with all the bravado of someone who knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't mind if anyone calls him out on it. The Beatles wrote the rulebook on modern rock, and Noel's unabashed approach to sampling their work feels almost like a tribute, a way of paying homage to the music that defined his childhood and teenage years. There's an innocence in it, as if he genuinely believes he's part of the same lineage, carrying the flame for a new generation. And he might be right. When he slings his guitar over his shoulder and sings with that half-mocking sneer, it's not hard to imagine Lennon himself looking down approvingly, admiring the kid who dared to step up to the altar. But while the Beatles gave him melody, it was punk rock that gave Noel Gallagher his edge. Growing up in Manchester in the 1970s, he was smack in the middle of the punk explosion, a seismic shift that would shape him as much as any melody or lyric ever could. The Sex Pistols were the mouthpiece of a generation fed up with politeness and polish, and in Steve Jones, Gallagher found his first guitar hero. Jones didn't play with finesse or fancy technique, but he had something Noel would come to treasure, a raw, unfiltered power that felt as dangerous as it was thrilling.
It's one of the first things you learn when you pick up the electric guitar is that riff.
Jones's playing was a fist in the air, a middle finger to tradition, and Noel absorbed it like a sponge. For Noel, punk was more than just music. It was permission. It was the sound of rebellion, of a musical form that didn't care about convention, and that was exactly what Gallagher needed. He's often said that Jones showed him what a guitarist could be without any of the frills or pretensions that bogged down the scene. It wasn't about looking pretty or playing fast. It was about playing with attitude, with conviction. Gallagher still speaks of Jones with an almost paternal pride, like a father looking back on the man who taught him how to walk. The Sex Pistols gave him the grit, the edge, the swagger, and he took it all in like oxygen. And then there's Johnny Marr, the man who made Gallagher realize that a guitar could do more than thrash out chords. It could weave intricate spells. Marr was light years ahead of his peers in the Smiths, playing complex, layered riffs that floated and shimmered, all while looking cool as a glacier. Gallagher once said that watching Marr play was like seeing a magician at work. He had no idea how the guy pulled it off, but he knew he wanted in on the secret. Marr's style was the polar opposite of Steve Jones's primal fury, but that's what made him so intoxicating. He brought a touch of elegance, a musical intelligence that Gallagher would spend years trying to decipher. For Gallagher, Marr was the unreachable idol, the godlike figure who showed him what it meant to craft something beautiful and intricate out of sheer passion and discipline. And it wasn't just admiration from afar. Ma would eventually become one of Noel's closest friends in the industry. He even gifted Noel a guitar during the recording of Definitely Maybe, a gesture that Gallagher still remembers as a defining moment in his career. That guitar, to Gallagher, wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of everything Ma represented. He took it upstairs, shut himself away, and wrote Slide Away in a burst of inspiration, as if the guitar itself had carried a piece of Ma's genius within it. Ma didn't just give Gallagher a new instrument, he gave him a new way of thinking about music.
So I said, oh, well, look, I'll lend you one of mine. And, his eyes lit up like that. So I had this Sunburst 1960 Gibson Les Paul, worth a fortune. It was then, but it is now. And I got it from Pete Townsend. And I just thought, oh yeah, I'll lend him that. It's all right, it really buzzed him up, Anyway, he fell in love with this guitar, and so I didn't really have the heart to ask for it back then. And he wrote, I know he wrote Live Forever on it, and he probably wrote a few more. It's in the Live Forever video.
Then there's Paul Weller. If Steve Jones gave him attitude and Ma gave him intricacy, Weller gave him purpose. As the frontman of The Jam, Weller was a songwriter's songwriter, the kind of artist who didn't care about flashy solos or grandstanding. Weller's genius was in his restraint, in the way he could take the simplest chords and turn them into rallying cries, anthems for the everyman. Gallagher has said that Weller was never really a guitar hero in the traditional sense. He didn't need to be. For Noel, Weller was something even better, a role model who showed him that real power in music comes from honesty and simplicity. With Weller, Gallagher learned to embrace minimalism, to strip away the excess and focus on the bones of a song. Weller didn't need frills. His songs spoke for themselves, and Gallagher took that lesson to heart. In tracks like Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger, you can hear the Weller influence, a simplicity that's almost deceptive, hiding an emotional weight that's impossible to ignore. Weller's gift was his ability to make you feel something profound without needing to shout, and Noel's greatest songs carry that same quiet conviction, a kind of understated power that lingers long after the final note fades. But Noel didn't just admire these icons from afar. He went on to collaborate with many of them, an almost surreal turn of events for the kid from Manchester who once dreamed of joining their ranks. His friendship with Ma blossomed into a creative partnership, with Ma lending his talents to Gallagher's solo work, adding layers of depth to songs like Ballad of the Mighty Eye, and his relationship with Weller would yield one of the most memorable guitar moments in Oasis's history. During the recording of What's the Story Morning Glory, Weller dropped by the studio to play a blistering solo on Champagne Supernova, a performance that Gallagher still describes with a sense of awe. Originally meant to play on Morning Glory, Weller's solo found its way onto Champagne Supernova like a blessing, a moment of serendipity that Gallagher could hardly believe. In Noel Gallagher's music, you can trace the fingerprints of these heroes, each of them leaving an indelible mark on the songs that would go on to define a generation. He took Steve Jones's grit, Johnny Marr's finesse, and Paul Weller's soul, and spun them into something uniquely his own. He's a product of his influences, yes, but he's also their successor, a man who took everything he learned from his idols and used it to build something fresh, something raw, something unmistakably Noel. What's remarkable about Noel Gallagher is not just that he studied his heroes, but that he understood them on a fundamental level. He saw the power in simplicity, the beauty in restraint, and the magic in melody, and he used those elements to craft songs that feel as timeless as the classics he grew up idolizing. For all his swagger and bravado, Noel Gallagher is, at his core, a man who reveres the art of songwriting, a man who knows that a great song is worth more than any amount of fame or adulation. In that sense, he's a true disciple of his idols, a torchbearer for a tradition of music that refuses to die, that lives on with every strum of his guitar and every note he sings. He's not just a rock star, he's a fan who got lucky, a kid from Manchester who never quite grew up, and thank God for that.